Hey, BJJ guys over 30. Today I'm going to go over the top 3 strength exercises that you should be doing to get strong with BJJ. It's not only that you perform better on the mat, but you can actually stay on the mat, that you're not going to beat yourself up. Strength training can be one of those things that allows you to train a very long time at a high level and really avoid a lot of the injuries that most guys deal with. You know, the guys in the gym who are just like constantly hurt. Strength training is protective, but we have to make sure we do it right. So I'm going to go over the top 3 exercises. So let's get started. So the first exercise is going to be doing leg exercises that don't compress your spine and that are more front loaded. Because what happens is, like, when you compress your spine, that not only does that like shoot your CNS, which will destroy your recovery, but it's going to affect it's going to really beat up your lower back. You have a sore back. You're being inflexible, because when your back is hurt, all the muscles in your body become extremely tight. So we want to train the legs. But here's the thing: when it comes to training the legs, all we really care about is being able to develop a lot of force through the legs. So our body doesn't care if we're doing like a traditional deadlift or a sumo deadlift. We want exercises where we can develop that force production without really beating up our joints. And as an added benefit, if we can do lower body exercises that activate our core, that's going to help us protect our back in the long run. Plus, having a strong core is so important for BJJ. So for some of my favorite exercises, so let's start with the deadlift. So kettlebell deadlifts, trap bar deadlifts, and the reason why this is so great, it's not going to compress your joints as much as, say, like a traditional deadlift or even a sumo deadlift. But because the weight is not in front of you, it's right underneath you, it's easier for your core to get involved. It doesn't put so much stress on your rectors and your lower back. The second thing is when we do squats. Not that you can't ever do back squats, but most of your squats should probably be front loaded. So what's a front loaded squat? That would be like a dumbbell squat, a kettlebell squat, even like a safety bar squat is really a front loaded squat. A barbell front squat, if you do it here or if you do it here, and when it's loaded, because you have to fight to keep your chest up, it's going to work your abs a lot more. It's going to strengthen your upper back. And these are 2 areas that are going to help you develop really good posture. So think about when it comes to BJJ, if you have a strong core and a strong upper back, you can resist what the other guy's doing to you a lot easier versus if these muscles are weaker. So I would go with your squat variations. I would pick more front-loaded squat variations, and depending on how, your experience would depend on what exercise you do. Obviously, like a dumbbell squat, kettlebell squat is going to be good for maybe more of a beginner. A barbell front squat is going to be better for someone who's a little more advanced. The last thing I want to go in this section is doing single leg exercises, because when you work the single leg exercises, because there's so much stability here, you work your core a lot. There's a really very low spinal compression when you do single leg exercises such as lunges, step ups, rip elbow split squats, step ups, and they can even be pretty protective for your knee. One of the things I'm a big believer in jiu-jitsu is, can we build muscle and strength around the most vulnerable areas in BJJ? So that's usually our knees, our ankles, our shoulders, our elbows. Even like think about like your ribs. A lot of guys get rib injuries. If you have a strong core, if you have strong pecs, that becomes a strong upper back. That becomes harder to do versus like if you're like a super skinny guy that doesn't have any muscle, that becomes a little easier to do. So the second best exercise for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is going to be doing a horizontal neutral presses. So when we talk about pressing, anything where I've taken something on myself and pushing it away. So you think of your bench presses, your dumbbell presses, your shoulder presses, your push-ups. The best thing is going to be keeping it in the horizontal plane. So this is horizontal, and staying away from vertical plane. So a lot of people can't go overhead, and when they do go overhead, they really beat up the joints. Now some people can do this without any pain, and it really depends on like your training history and also your anatomy. Like all our bone structures are different, so some people their bone structure it's easier for you to go overhead. I'm not one of those guys, so I don't go overhead a ton. So to stay on the mat, you're going to want to do a horizontal pressing, and then the neutral grips. When a neutral grip is like this, pronated. When you have your elbows close to your body, it's less stress on your shoulders. So instead of doing a barbell bench press, you're much better doing like a neutral grip dumbbell presses, and you can do a ton of variations with this: incline dumbbell presses, decline dumbbell presses, floor presses, alternating chest presses. There is a thing called a football bar, which is like a barbell but it has these neutral handles. Those would work right, but I would definitely stay away from barbell bench pressing most of the time. I would stay away from overhead pressing. If you do want to get some overhead press effect, what you could possibly do is landmine presses, which I'm a big fan of, because it's not straight overhead; it's a little overhead, and that little angle is enough for it to help you still get strong in that overhead press motion, but without beating those joints. So number 3 is going to be, we need to do a ton of horizontal pulling. And one of the biggest reasons for this is the front muscles, the pecs, the interior shoulders, they're so overdeveloped. And when you go to the gym, most guys work this with more weight, more reps, more sets than they do with their back. So what ends up happening, you have all this muscles that are pulling the shoulder forward, giving you really bad posture, and these muscles become weak. And when you have this huge imbalance, it's very easy to get hurt. So you need to balance that with a lot of work with the pulling. You should be doing more pulling work than horizontal work from a volume standpoint. So more sets and reps doing horizontal pulling than you do with pushing. Now the thing with this is overhead pulling is okay. Lat pull downs, chin ups, they're not the worst exercises. But what you have to understand about that is that with horizontal pulling, we're pulling our shoulders back. We're externally rotating our shoulders, where when we press, we internally rotate our shoulders, which we kind of want to get away from. So when we do chin-ups, they are actually, although I'm pulling, they are actually internal rotators. So you don't want to do a ton of that. Exercises that you want to do a ton of would be like ring rows or TRX rows. One of my favorite rows is like a bench T-bar row. Bent over rows if they don't bother your back. One-arm rows with dumbbells, with cables. You can do machine rows. There's so many different rows that you can really do. And I do like to add like a ton of banded pole pots, banded base pulls. I'm a big fan of, and just get a lot of work with those. Because again, we want to counter that. And another thing that I talked about briefly before is that BJJ, especially when you think of if you're a gi guy, there's a lot of grabbing the gi, all right, and pulling, and a lot of pull work is going to give you a strong grip. And it's a lot of grabbing the gi and pulling in different variations. If it's like arm drags or thinking about like I'm a big collar and sleeve guy. You need to keep that tension. That's a lot of pulling muscles. So you want to make sure that you have good pulling strength, and that's going to take your game from next level. Plus, this is going to help you not get hurt so much. So those are the 3 best exercises for jiu-jitsu. So let's review them. So lower body exercises that do not compress the spine and that activate your core more. Okay. So I talked about trap-eye deadlifts, front-loaded squats, single leg work. Then number 2 is going to be horizontal neutral grip pressing. Let's get away from the barbells, do more dumbbell variation presses, push-ups, maybe even some landmine presses. And then the third thing that we want to do is we want to do a ton of horizontal pulling. We want more total reps, volume, and sets doing horizontal pulling. So I talked about how I love ring rows, T-bar rows, one-arm rows, and want to do that to counteract these overdeveloped chest and front shoulder muscles. Plus, BJJ is a lot about having a really strong posture so we can resist the other guys trying to pull us around. And especially if you do gi, even if you don't do gi, jiu-jitsu in general is a lot of pulling. If you have a strong upper back, if you have very good pulling strength, that's going to help you with BJJ. I hope that helps. If you're looking for individualized plan, I am looking for 5 new online clients where I'll write you a customized program. If you're interested in that, I'll just put the link in the descriptions, and you can just click on the link, apply, and we'll chit chat and see if we're a good fit for each other.